All right, ready to dive deep. Today, we're exploring the I Ching, you know, the Book of Changes.
That's right. And we'll be looking at it through the lens of Huang, a complete I Ching. Well, you might be surprised it's not just about fortune telling.
Yeah, when I first heard about the I Ching, I thought it was all a bit, mystical and cryptic. But then I started digging in and realized it's actually full of practical wisdom, like stuff that's still relevant today.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking about ancient kings using it for, like, major decisions, advice on handling tough situations, and even some insights into human behavior that feel, well, kind of modern.
That's what's so cool about the I Ching. It really speaks to those questions we all ask, like how to deal with change, finding balance, just making sense of things.
So let's break down some of the big ideas. I think yin and yang is a good place to start. We hear those words all the time, but the I Ching, it takes it further.
Yeah, it's not just opposites. Like, think of it more like two sides of a coin.
Right. Can't have one without the other.
Exactly. The I Ching shows them as complementary forces, like each one has the seed of the other inside. They're always interacting, always changing.
Okay. I'm starting to see it. It's about finding that harmony between the two, right?
Yeah.
Not about getting rid of one or the other.
Exactly. And the I Ching uses these things called hexagrams to show how that works visually. Have you ever seen those?
Yeah, I've seen them around, but to be honest, they look like just a bunch of random lines.
Well, they're not random at all. Each one is made up of 6 lines,
Okay.
either solid or broken. And those lines, they show whether yin or yang is present at that moment. So it's like a snapshot of the forces at play in a situation.
So each hexagram is like a little story then, capturing a moment of change with all its possibilities, challenges, everything.
You got it. And there's this thing called moving lines, too. Imagine some of those lines are like actually in motion, changing from solid to broken or the other way around. It's showing us that things are already changing, in flux.
Whoa, that's pretty deep. So it's not just a static picture. It's showing the potential for things to transform. It's mind-blowing how they use these simple symbols to explain such complex stuff.
I know, right? It's brilliant. But it gets even more interesting when you see how those hexagrams connect to, like, real world situations. Like, we're talking ancient Chinese leaders using them to make huge decisions that changed history.
That's okay. Now I'm hooked. Tell me more about these historical connections.
Well, there's hexagram 1, Qian, the creative. It's often linked to King Wen, the founder of the Zhou dynasty. That hexagram is all about that strong initiating energy, like the ability to lead and create something totally new.
So this is a real example of someone using the I Ching to, like, make big change happen. That's impressive.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering how these old stories connect to what we deal with today. Could I use the I Ching to, I don't know, make decisions in my own life?
Absolutely. I mean, the I Ching might be from ancient China, but the wisdom in it, it's timeless. It gives you insight into leadership, making decisions, relationships, dealing with conflict, even personal growth, all those things we still struggle with. And those hexagrams, they give you a way to understand those challenges and navigate them with more, well, clarity and wisdom.
Okay, I see the practical side now. It's not just history. It's about applying those principles to our lives. So let's look at a few more of these hexagrams.
Let's do it. Let's see what other wisdom the I Ching has for us.
It's kind of wild to think about how much wisdom is packed into these ancient texts. Like, they've been holding these secrets for centuries, just waiting for us to rediscover them.
It really is amazing. And speaking of ancient wisdom, did you know that the I Ching had a huge influence on some of the most important philosophical traditions in China? Like, even Confucius himself was a big fan.
Wait, really? Confucius, the guy who was all about tradition and social order, he was into this book of, symbols and changing lines. That's not what I expected.
Yeah, I know. It seems a bit surprising at first. But Confucius actually saw the I Ching as a source of deep wisdom, especially when it came to understanding human nature and the principles of good governance. He even wrote a lot about the first two hexagrams, Qian and Kun. He saw them as like the foundation of the whole system.
So this ancient text was a bridge between philosophy and practical wisdom then.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about abstract ideas. It's about how we actually live our lives and build a better society.
Exactly. And it goes beyond Confucianism, too. Taoism, which is another big Chinese philosophy, also drew inspiration from the I Ching. Both traditions really emphasize balance and harmony, but they approach it from slightly different angles. It's fascinating to see how these different schools of thought interacted with, like, interpreted the I Ching over time.
It's like this text has had this ripple effect throughout Chinese culture, influencing everything from art and literature to even martial arts. Speaking of ripple effects, let's talk about leadership. There are a few hexagrams that really stand out to me when it comes to understanding, power and influence, like hexagram 7, she, the army. What can that teach us about being an effective leader?
Well, she is all about strategy, discipline, and, achieving victory. But it also explores the dangers of unchecked ambition and the importance of unity and moral authority.
So it's not just about winning at all costs. It's about leading with integrity and inspiring people to follow the right path.
You got it. The I Ching reminds us that true leadership is about serving something bigger than yourself, not just personal gain. It's about using your power wisely, responsibly.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about those times when the best thing to do is actually nothing? Like I'm thinking of hexagram 12, pi, stand still. That one seems a bit counterintuitive, especially in our world where everything's so fast-paced and we're always supposed to be on.
Pi is one of my favorites. It really highlights the importance of pausing, reflecting, and recognizing when it's just not the right time to act. It's about understanding that sometimes the wisest thing to do is just wait. Conserve your energy and see how things play out.
So it's like hitting pause when things are going crazy, taking a step back to reassess before doing anything rash.
Exactly. Our culture pushes us to always be doing something, to be constantly striving and achieving. But the I Ching reminds us that stillness can be the key to progress.
It's a powerful message. We could all probably use a little more stillness, honestly. But what about when we're facing obstacles that seem impossible to overcome? Like when we feel stuck and have no idea what to do. Is there a hexagram that speaks to that?
There is. Hexagram 39 gene obstruction is all about those tough times,
Yeah.
where you feel like you're, hitting a wall. But the I Ching has this message of resilience and resourcefulness. It encourages you to get creative, to find a new approach, even to ask for help.
It's like saying, hey, life is going to throw you curveballs, but it's how you respond that matters. You've got the strength to figure it out.
That's a great way to put it. And often it's those moments of struggle that lead to the most growth, real transformation.
Speaking of transformation, I'm curious about hexagram 49, G, revolution. That one sounds kind of intense. Does it literally mean overthrowing the government?
Well, not always. Revolution is more about those periods of big change, times when the old ways aren't working anymore and you need a complete overhaul. It can be, a time of a lot of upheaval and uncertainty. But the I Ching emphasizes that even in revolution, there's still an underlying order, a purpose.
So it's not just about chaos and destruction. It's recognizing that sometimes fundamental change is what's needed for growth to happen.
You got it. And the hexagram, it tells us to embrace that change, to let go of things that aren't working and be open to new possibilities. It's about understanding that change is a natural part of life. It's not something to be afraid of.
Okay, we've covered a lot here. Leadership, stillness, obstruction, revolution. It really seems like the I Ching touches on pretty much every part of human experience.
It does. It's a remarkable testament to how wise and insightful those ancient Chinese philosophers were. They really wanted to understand the complexities of life and change. And the best part is, we can still access this wisdom today. We can use these ancient insights to navigate our modern lives.
But it's not just about ancient wisdom, right? It's about actually using those principles in our lives now, even in the 21st century.
Absolutely. The I Ching is like this timeless guide. It offers insights that are just as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago.
Okay, so how about we take a look at a few more of these hexagrams before we wrap things up? I'm ready to dive back into the Book of Changes and see what else we can discover.
Let's do it. There's still so much to explore.
Okay, let's jump back into those hexagrams. One that always gives me hope is hexagram 24, Fu, returning. It just feels so, refreshing, like a new start.
It's a really beautiful one. It captures that feeling of renewal, like cyclical change. It reminds us that after things decline or like a dormant period, there's always potential for a comeback.
It's like that feeling of spring after a long winter,
Yeah.
right? Or even a comeback after a big setback. The I Ching is saying, hey, don't give up.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that it's not just about going back to the way things were before. It's more like emerging transformed, stronger, wiser.
So not repeating the past,
Yeah.
but using those experiences to create something even better. That's pretty empowering.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
recognizing those cycles in life, and embracing the chance to grow and renew. Another one that speaks to transformation is hexagram 50, ding the cauldron. Ever thought about what that symbolizes?
I've always found the cauldron kind of mysterious, to be honest. What's the deeper meaning?
Well, the cauldron is all about transformation and nourishment. It's a powerful symbol showing how we take those raw ingredients, experiences, challenges, even our shortcomings, and we can refine them into something valuable, nourishing. Like, you know how a cauldron cooks and transforms food? We use our experiences to transform ourselves.
I like that analogy. It's like taking the messy parts of life and making them into something that, well, that sustains us, helps us grow.
Exactly. And the hexagram also shows how important leadership and guidance are in that process. Like a cauldron needs a skilled cook, right? We often need mentors, teachers, even those tough experiences to refine ourselves, to reach our potential.
So it's not just about improving ourselves on our own, it's recognizing that others play a role in our growth.
Yeah, we're all connected. The I Ching reminds us that real transformation, it often happens in community, in relationship with others. But, sometimes growth also means setting limits. What comes to mind when you hear that word? Limitation.
Honestly, I usually think of it as a negative thing, like something's holding me back.
A lot of people do. But the I Ching has a different take. Hexagram 60, G, limitation, talks about how important boundaries are. Self-discipline, recognizing our limits. It's like balancing out that tendency to do too much, push ourselves too far.
It's like that saying, everything in moderation, knowing when to say no, making sure we don't burn out.
Exactly. And the I Ching suggests that real freedom and feeling fulfilled, it doesn't come from just, expanding without limits. It comes from understanding and working within our limitations.
Finding that balance between pushing ourselves and knowing when to rest. I never thought of limits as a path to freedom, but it makes sense.
It's a big shift in how we see things. Now that we've explored some of these key ideas, these hexagrams, what do you think is the most valuable takeaway from the I Ching?
For me, it's that reminder that change is going to happen, and that's okay. It's not about predicting the future. It's about understanding the forces at work and responding with wisdom, flexibility.
I love that. And for me, it's how much it stresses self-cultivation, ethical behavior. The I Ching gives practical advice, but it also guides us to become better people, to live with integrity, purpose.
Well said. So what does all this mean for our listeners? What can they take away from our I Ching deep dive as they go about their lives making decisions?
The I Ching tells us to embrace change, to look for balance, to cultivate wisdom, humility, and resilience, so we can weather those inevitable storms. And maybe most importantly, it reminds us we're not alone. There's timeless wisdom in these hexagrams. They offer guidance, inspiration, and a connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And remember, there's always more to discover in the I Ching, more layers to peel back, more wisdom to find. It's a journey. So keep those minds curious, keep those hearts open, and keep on diving deep.